Yeah.
Good morning. We're going to get started. I know everyone's on a tight schedule. I appreciate everyone taking the time and such short notice to be here this morning for a very, very significant, important discussion. So if you're ready, I want to say I'm deeply honored to have the National Security Advisor, Robert O Brien, with us today, and with him is U.S. Senator Mike Lee from Utah. As you know, Los Angeles County is home to the largest diaspora of Armenians residing outside of Armenia. Grassroots organizations and faith-based leaders have done a tremendous job raising awareness for the most pressing issues of the Armenian community. Most notably, they've shed light on the ongoing efforts to attain justice for the 1.5 million Armenians who were massacred by the Ottoman Empire in the genocide of 1915. Armenians have proven to be peace-loving, determined, and resilient community, and the Velvet Revolution is another outstanding example of that. For all those reasons, my colleagues on the board join me to denounce the unprovoked and premeditated attacks by the Azerbaijan with the support of the Republic of Turkey on the Republic of Artsakh beginning on September 27th. We remain very troubled by Azerbaijan's refusal to honor the 3 separate ceasefire agreements in recent weeks and the continued campaign to spread misinformation and deflect their egregious activities. It is clear to all of us that a firm message is required, which is among the reasons we are joined by National Security Advisor Robert O Brien today. Prior to his role as a National Security Advisor for President Trump, Robert O Brien served as a special presidential envoy for hostage affairs. Before that, he was co-chair of the U.S. Department of State Public and Private Partnership for Justice Reform in Afghanistan under Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton. From 2008 through 2011, Mr. O'Brien was a presidentially appointed member of the U.S. Cultural Property Advisory Committee. In 2005, Mr. O'Brien was nominated by President George W. Bush and confirmed by the U.S. Senate to serve as a U.S. representative to the 60th session of the United Nations General Assembly, where he worked with Ambassador John Bolton. Earlier in his career, Mr. O'Brien served as senior legal officer for the United Nations Security Council Commission, where he decided claims against Iraq arising out of the Gulf War. Additionally, he was a major in the U.S. Army Reserve and is co-founding partner of Larson O'Brien, which is a nationally recognized litigation firm based in Los Angeles. In addition to his client work, he served as an arbitrator in more than 20 international proceedings and has been appointed by the federal courts to serve as a special master in numerous complex cases. He is a member of the Pacific Council on International Policy, and he earned his law degree from UC Berkeley and his bachelor's degree in political science, graduating cum laude from UCLA. We are deeply grateful that he has joined us here today. Now it is my honor to introduce our National Security Advisor, Robert O Brien.
Thank you, Catherine. It's great to come home to Los Angeles and Pasadena and Glendale, La Cañada, and wonderful to be introduced by my supervisor and my dear friend Catherine. The Barger family is a wonderful family here. It's great to see a bunch of my friends as well. My former law partner, Harm Ortebigan, and Michelle Kazarian, and it's just the Armenian community is such a huge part of our life here in California. I bring you greetings from the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. And as you know, as you've heard in his rallies over the past several weeks, the President has a great affection for the people of Armenia, and especially for our Armenian Americans. And we have a very good relationship with Armenia. They're great people, and they're dedicated, and as the President said, they're an incredible people. And I agree with the president. So when I told him I was coming out to the West Coast, I'm going to be at Nellis Air Force Base later today at the Air Force Weapons School, Weapons Center. He said, why don't you stop and see some of our Armenian friends and spend some time with them? And I said, I know where a few of them live. And so it's great to be here with my neighbors and friends. So to set the stage for the discussion today, I wanted to give you just an update of what's happened on the ground and our efforts to resolve the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. As you know, Azerbaijani forces have taken several strategic towns and made gains along the northern and southern portions of the line of contact. Both sides claim to have inflicted high casualties on the other side, but Azerbaijan continues to make territorial gains, and there are no indications at this point that Azerbaijan intends to stop its offensive military campaign in the near future. Excuse me. Azerbaijan has used its oil money that it's gained over the past several years to buy more advanced weaponry, and they have technical assistance and advisory support from Turkey, and so far that's given Azerbaijan an edge. But let me be clear, what's happening in Azerbaijan and Armenia is a war, and it's a tragedy for the people who are there. Despite Turkish denials that they've made to me personally, there are credible reports in the open source press that Turkey's deployed fighters from Syria's opposition Syrian National Army into the conflict. Thank you very much. We've had 3 attempts to broker a ceasefire, and unfortunately all 3 have failed. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov brokered a limited humanitarian ceasefire statement between the Armenian and Azerbaijani foreign ministers on October 10th, but that agreement was never fully implemented. On October 17th, a humanitarian ceasefire was mediated by French President Macron, but that's been violated multiple times almost immediately after the ceasefire was to take effect. And similarly, a ceasefire agreement was brokered by Secretary Pompeo. Deputy Secretary Stephen Biegun did a bunch of work over the weekend, and we got a ceasefire put in place on October 24th. I was involved in helping support Secretary Pompeo and DepSec Biegun, and unfortunately that ceasefire has had no lasting effect, with both sides claiming that the other side violated the ceasefire, and therefore the fighting continues. Unfortunately, it's hard to envision a long-term ceasefire or settlement that does not involve multinational armed peacekeeping forces or observers. Of course, any armed peacekeeping force should not include Minsk Group co-chairs, including the United States or neighboring countries. Any sort of Turkish mediation or peacekeeping role is a non-starter for the United States as well as for Armenia. We believe that both parties should accept Scandinavian peacekeepers, and we're working with Scandinavian governments to put together a peacekeeping force that could be deployed into the region to keep a ceasefire. The United States is deeply concerned about the escalation of violence between Azerbaijan and Armenia, especially reports of strikes in areas of significant civilian populations. I spoke with President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan on September 29th and on October 1st, respectively. And I spoke with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan again, Prime Minister Pashinyan of Armenia again yesterday on my flight out here to California. I've also met with Azerbaijani Foreign Minister Bayramov and Armenian Foreign Minister Matsakanyan at the White House on October 23rd. The President has been very forceful and has called on both sides to fully observe their obligations under international humanitarian law, including the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. Now, attacks by forces outside Nagorno-Karabakh, the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict area, raise the very serious risk of retaliation, uncontrolled escalation, and further humanitarian suffering. Outside powers, I want to make this very clear, outside powers have no role in this conflict. And what is clear to the United States and to President Trump and our team is that there is no military solution to the political issues at stake in this conflict. So both sides must agree to a ceasefire, and they must come to the negotiating table without preconditions. This is particularly true of the Azerbaijanis, who have been the most hesitant about an unconditional ceasefire to date. At the Minsk Group negotiations, both sides must be willing to discuss in good faith the substance of the dispute and be prepared to make difficult compromises. Again, on both sides, there are going to be difficult compromises to obtain peace. Defending the same maximalist positions that have been held for the last 25 years will not bring peace. And so without leadership and compromise from both countries, the spiral of suffering and death will likely continue. The Minsk Group co-chairs have consistently made it clear that any lasting relevant resolution of the conflict must be based on three Helsinki Final Act principles regarding the non-use of force, territorial integrity of the states, and equal rights and self-determination for the peoples. The parties to the conflict usually emphasize one principle over the others. Azerbaijan focuses on territorial integrity, while Armenia highlights self-determination. But the United States considers all three principles to be essential to resolving the conflict. The United States is committed to peace for Armenia and Azerbaijan, and we're hopeful for an immediate end to the fighting and a diplomatic solution that will ultimately secure a lasting peace. And the United States is committed to continue in our engagement with the parties in an effort to make that happen, and that includes personal engagement from the President of the United States. So with that introduction, I think we're going to have a discussion, and I think we're going to hear from Senator Lee in just a moment. May God bless you, may God bless Armenia, and may God bless the people of the United States. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for letting me be here today. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you and with my friend Robert O'Brien. He's a true patriot and brings to his position as the President's National Security Advisor a vast reservoir of knowledge that he's acquired over many decades. If you ever have the experience to be in a room with Robert O'Brien where there's a map of the world on the wall and have someone just ask him about any point along the globe, he can tell you exactly what's happening there and give you a fair analysis, one that is incredibly helpful to the President of the United States and to this administration and to our country as a whole. I love the Armenian people. I love how you coalesce as a people throughout the world and after coming to the United States. First of all, I've never met an Armenian who I don't really like. There's something to be said for that. You can't say the same. Thank you. You can't necessarily say the same for people whose ancestors immigrated from England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales and Scandinavia like mine did. There are a lot of jerks who come from there, but not so with Armenians. You also see something in Armenian people of Armenian ancestry in the United States. There's something, there's an esprit de corps there that exists that you don't see among very many groups of people. And the IAN at the end of the name is so often a tip-off. But people of Armenian descent come together throughout our country, and they support each other, and they help each other. I feel a special kinship with Armenians, especially given all the historical work that's been done over the last few years in connection with the 100-year anniversary of tragedies that occurred in Armenia in 1915. People have become much more aware of the persecution that has existed and that is still going on today. In many respects, I feel a special kinship with that as a religious minority myself, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. My ancestors, well, we started out in a church, started in upstate New York. They shot at us there, so we moved to Ohio. They shot at us there. We're heretics. We try to be really nice heretics, but we're heretics nonetheless. So we moved to Missouri. They shot at us there. They shot at us again in Illinois, so we moved to what's now Utah. I understand the difficulties faced by a group of people, hated, not because of what they do, but because of who they are. That's the kind of persecution that's been faced for so long in Armenia and by Armenians, and particularly those who are under persecution today. If religious freedom and tolerance and pluralism can thrive anywhere, it's in the United States. But I also believe that if it can thrive here, it can thrive anywhere else. But we've got to make it happen here first. That's why I'm so grateful that the United States, through the Trump administration, has been able to support peace for Armenians, and my hope and great expectation is that that will accelerate as we move forward. So thank you very much. You have in me a friend I'm from Utah, not California, which means you can't vote for me, but I can vote for you when I'm in Washington. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now I'm going to open up for the pool if there's any questions from the press before we begin our roundtable. So I don't know, Anna, if there are. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot louder, please.
Here, right behind you.
Sure.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien, you acknowledge in your statement that Turkey is involved and so are jihadists and terrorists. Is there any punitive action that the United States should be taking, such as sanctions, stopping weapons delivery, both to Turkey and Azerbaijan? And my second question is, during the discussions about the third ceasefire, having seen the precedent, did the United States take any steps to provide for observers, any type of mitigation issues, so the ceasefire would go on? And what is going on today in Geneva, if you can fill us in?
Yeah, so let me respond to the question on the ceasefire first. We think that we have made progress on the types of observers that could be involved, and it's a complicated situation, and both sides have different allies, and so what we need to bring in are neutral peacekeepers. So we think peacekeepers from Scandinavia, from Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, would meet the needs of both parties. They're very effective soldiers, they're capable, they're well trained, and so we're working with those governments right now to see if we can put together a force that could come in as an observer force and an armed observer force and lend some more muscle to a ceasefire. As far as sanctions and that sort of thing, we're taking a look at our options. As one of the co-chairs of the Minsk group, we're in a unique position because we talk to the Azerbaijanis. We've got good relations with Azerbaijan as a country, and we have good relations with Armenia as a country. The other co-chairs may not have the same situation, and so we're viewed as a neutral party. And what we want to do is be careful not to, as concerned as we are about the conflict, as concerned as we are about our friends in Armenia, we're trying to maintain some level of neutrality because we may be the last opportunity to bring the parties together in Geneva or in Vienna, depending on where the talks will take place, and be the honest broker that can facilitate a peace. And that's what the president wants to see. I've said this before. I think the legacy of President Trump is going to be a legacy of a peacemaker, as you've seen with the Abraham Accords, with Bahrain and the UAE and Sudan making peace with Israel. If they can make peace, Azerbaijan and Armenia can make peace. We've seen the United States into a peace agreement with the Taliban, and we haven't had a combat death in Afghanistan since February, since that agreement was signed. So if we can make progress on that front, which is an intractable contract, we can make progress in Azerbaijan and Armenia. We've seen in Kosovo and Serbia, which is a similar type of a conflict as we're seeing in the Caucasus. We just obtained an agreement for full economic normalization between Serbia and Kosovo. So the president has put together a terrific record. One of the ways that he's able to do that is when the president speaks, the parties know that he means business. But one of the other ways that he's able to do it is that we've developed some cordiality with the various sides, and we're viewed as the honest broker. So we're trying to be very careful at this point. We don't want to be seen as picking a side. We want to play the role of peacemaker, and that's what the president's intention is. Having said that, as I mentioned earlier, and you heard it from Senator Lee, who's one of our great senators in Washington, there's a great affection in the administration and the Congress in this country for our Armenian neighbors, or especially our Armenian American neighbors, and so we're concerned and our heart's breaking for the tragedy that's taking place there. But the best way that we can help at this point, we believe, is to play the role of peacemaker. Yeah, I don't think that's on the table at this point. Thank you.
Yep. We'll let the press pack up, and then we're going to have a roundtable where we can have an open dialogue with all of you. So thank you.
And Senator, do you have your
տեսակ